So, I wanted to touch upon this topic of self love and self esteem and being your own best friend and relying on yourself and listening to yourself and trusting that voice. We hear this over and over. We read it in books, we hear it from, meditation gurus, spiritual leaders. And don't get me wrong, this is great. However, there's one step in the middle. So, we have often listened to ourselves when we are degrading ourselves, or we've listened to that voice inside that's saying you're not good enough, or oh, you screwed up again, or why did you do this, or you could have done this better, or you really hurt somebody, etc., etc. The list goes on. It's like that awful roommate that lives inside us, as cited by Michael Singer. So it becomes difficult because we're, on the one hand, we're being told, listen, love yourself, take care of yourself, be your own best friend. But then if our inner self is saying all of these horrendous things to us, it's not surprising that we don't want to listen. It's not surprising that we don't want to be our own best friend. It's not surprising that we want to rely on someone outside to make us feel loved and cared for and give us value and worth, right? How this works out is this. So we have two types of mind. And in fact, everything we perceive in our external environment is coming from what our mind is telling us. So our mind, almost like a middleman, sort of processes what's happening and then tells us this is what it means, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And there's a lot of judgment often that's attached to it. So we have two types of mind. One is a lower mind. And actually, if you want to read more about this, read a book by Ivan Antic called Meditation. He really explains very well. Lower mind is the one that's attached to ego. And that's where this sort of self-derogatory voice is coming from. You know, you're awful, you don't do anything well. The one that trips you up, the one that says, you really should do this. And then when you do it, it says, you did awful. That's where that voice is coming from. And the only reason we have that is because the ego wants attention. It wants us to pay attention to it so that then we can remain in sort of this asleep state and never be awake. Then there's the higher mind. The higher mind is that part of you that loves you, cares for you, and is most connected to the consciousness of the soul, to the greater consciousness of everything, right? And so, yes, there are two parts. There is the one that is ego-driven, fear-driven, that's constantly saying negative things and telling you how you're awful and trying to push you down. But then there's this higher mind connected to the consciousness of the soul. Once we start to become really aware of the two different voices, the two different trains of thoughts, we can then choose which one we want to hang our hat on, which one we want to rely on, which one we want to use when we're feeling crushed. When we start to tap more into that higher self, that higher mind that says, I love you, you're amazing, you're a beautiful human, you're having an experience that I'm just observing. Let's observe it together. I'll always be here for you. I will co-create with you. When you start to listen to that higher self, that's when the process, the cycle of self-love, self-esteem, self-confidence, that inner, I am my own mother, I am my own best friend, I am self-love, I am my own lover, I am the person who gives myself worth and value. That's when that cycle starts to kick in and we can actually build from there. So next time, you're having trouble with self-worth or self-love, and those voices are beating you up, take a couple of steps back and say, lower mind, higher mind, all of that makes me human. And which one am I going to choose to listen to?